Toys that became a TV show, that became a way to sell synthesizers. It's black stormtroopers, nipples, and overacting. It's Masters of the Universe. This week on Nothing Good.
Good evening.
Good evening, Doc. Welcome to the show again. What's up, dude?
It's good to be here. It's good to be around. I'm doing pretty good, man. Just enjoying a wonderful Sunday evening with my best friend here.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm excited to get to our topic here today.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about Masters of the Universe.
Masters of the Universe, 1987.
It was released August 7th, 1987.
Nice.
87.
Wow.
It was about 106 minutes long. Just the perfect length of time for a movie like that.
Just the perfect size.
Yeah.
Just right.
This and that just for the first of many sidebars here.
It took us 19 seconds.
I wanted
to
talk about how I'm using the sort of situation is. So we were going to record this episode several days ago.
Yes.
And I, realized while I was doing research, trying to figure out where I was going to watch this movie because I didn't own it. Like most of the people in the world, I didn't own it.
Not even Dolph Lundgren owns this movie.
No. So I realized that I had to go and find it. Couldn't stream it. Couldn't rent it. So I was like, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, I'll just buy it. I watched it a lot as a kid. I might as well own the damn thing.
Why not?
Bought it off Amazon, super cheap. Watched the movie, took my notes, enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So I show up to the studio to record, and my co-host here
didn't bother to watch the movie.
Did not watch the movie.
And it's not for a lack of trying, but it's for a complete lack of trying. Sometimes when you're a grown-ass man, life gets in the way. And I also tried. I set a whole time aside to stream this thing, only to find that it is unstreamable on any major service. But I did find it in chunks on YouTube. And I did set aside time to load it up on YouTube to watch. But when you know it, I popped up YouTube and, my recommended videos were there. And life got away from me.
As it does.
So we actually had to call an audible and wait a few more days.
Yes.
To record it until I saw the film.
Yes.
And which I did yesterday.
So
it's very fresh.
The best part of I got a kick out of the whole conversation we had because originally you said, well, we could just do the episode. And I'm like, well, yeah, we could. But listen, you got to watch this.
Yes. I thought, listen, I'm a professional bullshitter. I can fake my way through a lot of stuff. And I thought, this movie would be no problem.
There's so much happening in this that you won't get half the jokes I'm making or references that I'm making, that you got to appreciate the ridiculousness of it.
I'm so glad that I did watch the movie, but for all the wrong reasons. And so we find ourselves here at Masters of the Universe, the film. Now, this is actually, and I'm excited, this is not a sidebar, it's a setup to a certain extent.
Okay.
I'm really excited because we've reached the point in the podcast here. Dear singular listener, probably from Peru.
Hey, what up?
What up, Peru? If you have made it this far through, then you are recognizing that we are now approaching our second film discussion.
Yes.
Which means we've turned a corner. And when we originally talked about our 4 key pillars here, the foundation, the building blocks of this podcast would be us discussing films, pro wrestling, gaming, and music. We've now made it back to films.
How about that shit?
So I'm fun and excited rather to establish a rhythm here with our second film. So
yes. Before we get started,
like we're gonna get started anytime soon,
Mr. Brown. As is the ritual that we have here.
Tradition.
What are we drinking tonight?
Oh, you asked me. Oh,
yeah.
Look at that. Okay. Yeah. Well, we are enjoying an Arrogant Bastard Ale.
Yes.
7.2% from the fine people. Who bakes this one here? Who knows? Is that Troves? I don't know. It's somebody. Arrogant Bastard Ale, though. Bottled and brewed by Arrogant... So they're their own thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cheers to the listener who wants to join us on this.
So what do you think of it?
Well, I only took one sip just as we were getting started.
Okay.
Let me take another one again. That's not bad. That's got some body on it.
It's funny.
Bitey.
I was telling Mr. Brown here when we'd be drinking tonight. I said, "Oh man, I drank that way back in my mid-20s, which was a while back from now. It was like 10 years ago, over 10 years ago now." I remember, and I'm like, I don't remember if I even liked it or not. I have no recollection of it.
Nope.
But I remember going like, it's okay. So I'm having the sip for the first time in probably 12, 13 years, right?
Yeah.
And I'm remembering going, yeah, that's right. This is like aggressively something.
It's
But then, wait, you look at the back of the bottle, the label. It says, this is an aggressive beer. You probably won't like it.
It is quite doubtful that you have the taste or sophistication to be able to appreciate an ale of this quality and depth.
I feel called out.
We would suggest that you stick to safer, more familiar territory. Maybe something with a multi-million-dollar ad campaign aimed at convincing you that it's made at an independent brewery. Or one that implies that their tasteless seltzer, fizzy yellow beer, or whatever the hell will give you more sex appeal. Perhaps you think multi-million-dollar ad campaigns make all that junk taste better. Perhaps you're mouthing your words as you read this.
So this beer is a dick.
Oh, this beer came right at you here.
Yeah. But it's not that. I mean, I remember, I think when I was younger, I didn't appreciate it. I can honestly say, mid-20s, I was not down with this. I'm not saying it's my favorite beer I've ever had right now, but it's not nearly as bad as I remember it. I actually am enjoying it.
Yeah,
quite a bit.
It's definitely like closer to a red ale. I'm just realizing that I've never had a beer that totally identified as a heel itself before.
This could be your best beer you've ever had.
I mean, yeah, it is a full-on heel beer. The bottle just heeled out on us,
yes,
and our singular Peruvian listener.
Yeah.
So
sorry about that.
No worries, but yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Yeah. It's hard for me to find a beer that I don't like, and if I think I won't like it, i.e., something that begins with the word light or ends with the word light, I simply don't drink it.
Right.
There are other beers out there.
So here we are. Masters of the Universe, which, like I said, came out August 7th, 1987. And it was a massive flop.
Was it?
Yes.
I watched the movie. That ends the extent of the research I did for a review.
Well, I had to do some digging.
I love it.
So I'll put this in perspective for you. The budget for this movie, we're talking, the movie was...
Because I have a note about how much money I think they spent on this movie.
Okay,
what was the budget?
What do you think?
Not a lot.
Well, give me... Oh, is that your number?
I'm not going to put $1987 in there. But yeah, not a lot.
$22 million.
Oh my God.
Well, think about it. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of practical effects in this movie that are actually not bad.
How did you spend $22 million on this movie, though? Like, has it all in Skeletor's parade float?
Frank Langella's in it. I'm sure he had a hefty price tag.
No, but this was I think he was just a stage actor.
No, he had lots of movies before this movie.
Wait a minute.
This is 87.
This is 87.
Not 67.
This is prime Dolph Lundgren, though.
Well, fun fact about Dolph in this movie is he had very little acting experience by this point.
Okay.
And was super uncomfortable with the lines of dialogue. And they were originally going to do, dub over his voice, not have him do the lines. I don't know how the
fuck that was. He has 10 lines in this movie.
I will protect you. Yeah, I know. Because his accent was so strong still. He was super uncomfortable with a lot of the lines of dialogue, all 7 of them.
No way.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a thing.
Yeah, but anyhow, the budget was about $22 million, which is, again, I think a lot of that just goes to the production. There's some big sound stages in this movie.
Yeah.
And it, opening made 4.8, and that's it. And then it grossed worldwide $17.3 million.
Oh, so it's not a flop. It's a massive bomb.
Yeah, it didn't go so hot, which is a shame. Because, I mean, realistically, they could have had it done better. Even though it didn't do great, there were plans for a sequel, apparently. Dolph Lundgren was not going to be a part of it. I guess because he really didn't enjoy there was a lot of night shots, and he just didn't enjoy the production experience. It just wasn't good. So I can't remember the name of the actor who's going to play He-Man in the second movie, but they were already getting into pre-production and everything. And if I recall cursory research, it was something about it wasn't contracts. I think it's just production kind of got slowed down. Everybody's kind of bailed out on it.
Yeah.
But there was a sequel in the works.
But why?
So this is the beauty of this, see? Because I see something in this movie that you clearly didn't see.
What?
That while on the surface,
Yeah.
it was over-the-top bullshit. And the acting wasn't great. Most of it was not great.
Okay.
The plot was, I wouldn't say paper thin, because it wasn't paper thin. It wasn't a terrible plot. I've witnessed and have ingested worse movie plots in an action science fiction film.
Yeah, I would say that. I'd give you that.
But
The plot had potential.
what they did with very little, if you think about it. Because it's not like this is based on some trilogy of books. This isn't based on some long-standing video game franchise that had, hours and hours of lore and cinematics to go off of. This is based on a goddamn action figure line initially. And then it became a cartoon, right? And then it moved into, by 87, because He-Man debuted like 83. Like the action, which I didn't realize it was that damn old.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I knew it was like early-ish 80s,
sense.
but I didn't realize it was around the year I was born. That's wild, actually.
That is crazy. That is a bit crazy to think about the timeline there. For it to
So-
get big enough to be able to greenlight a film,
Yeah.
and then the TV series happens between those two things. Yeah.
So way back, Mattel balked at the idea of having having Star Wars like a Star Wars line. They felt like the price tag for the contract was too big. Then Star Wars blew up. And they're like, well, fuck. We missed the boat on that. So they decided to really get into the action figure line, like for little boys and everything. And they were working on... I read a little bit about how originally it was going to be like a Conan the Barbarian line. But then there was a lot of people iffy about, because the Conan Barbarian movies there was nudity. There was a lot of pretty intense violence.
Yeah.
They didn't want that association. There was a big lawsuit, blah, blah, blah. Then He-Man was born out of all that.
Yeah.
Okay. And He-Man, originally, which I didn't know this, because all the toys that I got, I don't remember getting them, obviously, because I was young.
Way too young.
Like,
Yes.
they're some of the earliest toys I remember ever having are He-Man toys. All right. So, I didn't realize that they ship the action figures with comic books, little mini comic books, giving, the origin of the characters.
Interesting.
And I also didn't know that that the action figures, it's almost like a totally different timeline between that and or a different universe almost between that and the cartoon. So in the actual action figures and the comic books that came with it, He-Man was just a barbarian who was fighting with a freedom force against Skeletor and trying to preserve what was left after the Great War of Eternia, kind of like in the movie, because apparently the movie is based on the toy line, not the cartoon.
Okay.
Because in the cartoon, we all know is Prince Adam.
Yeah.
There's none of that Prince Adam bullshit in the movie at all. Which, when I was little, why would I even think of that?
Yeah.
I'm just too young to really put that together. But yeah, the movie, which is why it's so... There's no Battle Cat, which how the fuck could they have not really done that anyhow?
No.
But the point is, it's based solely on the original concept of He-Man just being this barbarian guy, which I think is pretty interesting. But yeah, the movie did not do well, but we can talk about how ambitious it is. Think about how ambitious this movie really was.
I mean, yeah. I mean, they here's the way I would say to be positive there. They certainly swung for the fences. Mm-hmm. It just happened to be that they were playing football, not baseball.
Look, here's a little fun fact.
Yeah.
That soundstage with the throne room and everything. I don't remember the actual stats of how big it was, but at the time when they filmed that movie, it was the biggest soundstage that had been used and created in 40 years.
For Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to talk about how I know you're looking at me come on, seriously.
No, I you did so much precursory research.
Well, because that's what
you do,
right?
And I appreciate it and I love it. I just didn't expect these tidbits, so I'm processing it as you're telling me.
It's a lot to that movie that I think it is better than it has. It is better than it deserves to be in a way. It's not a great movie. Obviously, it's not a great movie.
Spoiler alert: no, it is not.
But But for what it is and what it's based off of, it's actually pretty damn good. If you look at it just in a little vacuum, what it's based on, what source material is even there to be workable, looking at who's really putting money into this, who would really think it's going to be turning a profit, right? The movie is with the practical effects in it, the makeup, it's pretty damn good.
I mean, to speak positively to it, right? The film is fun. And that's I think that's the main takeaway, because though I constantly ask myself when I was watching this film back that this was supposed to be geared towards children.
Yeah, was it though? Right?
And right? And, like, isn't it supposed to be geared towards kids? It had that fun adventureness that kind of kept you invested, at least enough, and you were entertained the whole way through.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there really isn't, like, when you look at some of the other more questionable licensing movies, right, and things come out, not all of them have the source material that others do that already has this clearly defined relationships, etc. So I guess, given that, Masters of the Universe could have done worse.
Infinitely worse. It could have been Mario.
Fuck you.
Listen, it's the truth.
Wait a minute.
Mario's an awful fucking film.
No.
Let's be honest.
No. It is bad.
It's very bad.
I have long since lost the point of objectivity about the Super Mario Brothers movie, which we will absolutely cover in a future episode. But
with like Molotov cocktails.
Listen, I am trying to be respectful and not come for this movie. Sorry. Okay,
yeah.
I could, and I hold out no hope as I get deeper into the arrogant bastard ale that I don't absolutely come for this movie. But John Leguizamo did not deserve your shit just there. Then, okay?
Yeah, I saw Spawn.
Again, I also saw Spawn.
Yeah.
Okay, we will do an entire Michael Jai White episode. Okay, an entire one, and we will get on Spawn. Then I am gonna put that in the notebook of things to be able to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Right? Oh yeah. But for now, let's bring it back here.
Yeah.
For a second, before we go into the film.
Yes.
And do you have any more notes about the production that you want to share? Was that the last one? The giant sound set?
I'll sprinkle some more in later.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So let's set it up. It is the summer of 1987.
Yeah.
For those that didn't live through it, because I was nigh old enough to remember, and we're going to go into, and I'll mention it as we go. But so I saw this film, and I know I saw this film when we were young,
right?
Multiple times, because it was the He-Man movie,
of course.
But I had no memory of what the movie actually entailed, other than like visual memories of this. How much of this, before you went back and watched it, did you remember from when you were a kid?
Honestly, so there's two parts to that, I guess, answers to it, really, because there's what you think you remember, and then there's what you actually do remember when you start watching it again.
Yeah. You're like, that's what happened to me.
Like 100%. Like, now, as context, when I was little, like all little kids, I'm sure we mentioned this before. We'll mention it multiple times throughout the life of this podcast. Little kids like watching the same shit over and over again. When you find something you like, you are in it, and you will know life it over and over and over. Oh man,
you're wear that tape out.
Yeah. So like Masters of the Universe, which my dad dubbed, he rented from Best Video, is the name of the place. It's not there anymore, unfortunately.
There are no video stores anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, Best Video, and he dubbed it. We had 2 VCRs in the house. He dubbed it, so I had like a copy that I would watch. And it was one of those movies that I didn't watch once and then never watch it again, or not another year. I probably watched that movie once a month, easily, if not more than once a month.
Nice.
I feel confident in saying I watched it several times a month for a while because I was just so into it. Like, I loved the He-Man character. I had multiple He-Man action figures. So to then have a movie, which I didn't see in the theaters, 100% we didn't see in the theaters, to own it was a big deal for me. So the only parts that I know, 20 plus years later, having not watched it, the only parts that I know I remembered for sure was Skeletor's speech, one of the greatest fucking moments in cinema history.
Yeah.
I remembered the dirty tickle fingers he gave Courtney Cox on her leg. I remembered that.
Yeah.
And I remembered, like, the mercenaries, because I fucking thought they were badass.
Beastman and
Beastman is my favorite He-Man character ever. He-Man and Mossman were two villains, obviously, but they were my go-to action figures as villains.
I don't think I have a favorite He-Man character, but if I had to pick one out of the aether of last night's film, I would say, does the guy who runs the synthesizer shop count? Louis.
Sure. Okay. He's not in anything but the movie, but sure.
That or Man-at-Arms, but for all the opposite reasons that I like the synthesizer guy.
The synthesizer, God. I love that fucking... That was like the greatest MacGuffin ever.
Oh, man.
It's like... I couldn't take that shit seriously.
No.
Or watching Gwildor, like, just spam the buttons on it like a drunk dwarf.
Yeah. Well, poor choice of words there. But it was full-on ridiculous. I'm just really surprised they didn't turn a Cosmic Key over and there's Casio written on the side of it. Right?
It might as well have been.
No. We will get to a point where... so I watched this film. Full disclosure before we get started. I watched this film with my wife and my daughter, who is exactly the target age that you were supposed to be when this movie happened. And all three of us had different reactions. But there's a scene, which we will get to, in which my wife, my sweet, darling wife, absolutely lost her shit in this movie. Absolutely lost her shit. To the point where she almost got up and walked out. Not because the movie was bad or anything, but because it pissed her off so bad. And we'll get there.
I love it.
We'll get there. So summer of 1987, you watched it on VHS. That's probably when I saw it too, because there's no way they would have taken me into the movie theater at that age. Yeah. So it's probably 88 when we first started watching this movie.
Probably.
Yeah, what a time, 1988. But are you ready to get going with this?
Yeah, for sure.
So, before we officially start, one last thing. So it's Masters of the Universe, 1987, starring Dolph Lundgren, Frank Langella, a extremely young Courtney Cox.
Yeah.
And then a whole bunch of other people.
People that I don't care about.
And
Meg Foster.
Meg Foster. I was just going to say, which... I have some notes about Meg Foster. That will come up when we start talking about that. But do you want to kick us off here? You want to kick us off with the start of the movie?
Yeah. So, and again, for me, the theme of this movie is it is way more serious than it has any business being.
Yeah.
At certain points.
Yeah.
And then like so over the top, silly or ridiculous in moments where it shouldn't be. It just ping pongs between those two highs and lows, right? So even like the first 15 seconds of the movie, the intro, the title screen is so fucking serious.
Yeah.
Like the power to be supreme, the power to be master of the universe. Okay. Like it's so serious.
So right off the gate, we open up with a title sequence that is looks like someone had a rolling screenshot of space and they put some wind chimes or some light prisms on.
Yeah.
And we get about 20 seconds of exposition.
It's in the center of the universe, might I add, which I got such a kick out of.
Yeah.
It's in the center of the universe. Like, all right.
Like, that's very specific. And that will represent, this 20 seconds in the beginning of the movie will represent 70% of all exposition we get in this entire film. Maybe even a higher percentage than that. They give you 20 seconds to explain what the power of the universe is.
Which I still don't really know.
And generally where this movie starts. Not where it takes place, but starts. And then... Masters of the Universe. Yes. And then a very Star Wars and intro.
Oh my God. So I'm glad you caught that. Like, okay. Seriously. If this movie had to, and obviously they would never have the budget for this, but now watching it, one of my first thoughts, like within the first 10 minutes before we get into like the ridiculousness of Earth, is like, if this movie just took place in eternity, it'd be fucking badass.
Yeah.
It actually really, because like I was really interested in that. In Eternia, the battle for Eternia.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the budget doesn't say that we need some Corvettes in here, so we can't.
Oh, no, yeah. And there's a whole lot of, like, unnecessary 80s Earthness that has to take place in this movie. In a lot of ways, that's one of the more endearing things to me, is because a lot of the things I remember upon watching, like, oh my God, I totally remember this scene. I didn't know that was this movie was from, or that prop, or all of that stuff. I'm grateful that I got to connect all these dots for this movie and click all those things in there. But yeah, I feel you on that. If you had bothered to actually explain right out of the gate. And I'm sorry to spoil it. They don't explain what the fuck Eternia is.
It's a planet.
What the hell a Skeletor is?
What's a Skeletor?
What really is? What's a sorceress's job? Any of this shit isn't explained, and they just kind of pop in to some super casual shit, like right out the gate.
So like we have the battle for Eternia. I guess the war is effectively basically over. It looks like Skeletor pretty much won.
Yeah.
But the problem is, He-Man and his freedom fighters are still fighting the good fight, and Skeletor has a massive hard-on for making He-Man kneel and submit to him.
So, subtext here is that Skeletor, who, as the name would suggest, is skeletal, at least in his face, to a certain extent.
Yes. Thick red skull.
Yeah, red skull, but with a much whiter and softer face.
Yes,
like that thing moves way too much. And see, to me, and we'll bring this up as we get going on with all of his monologues that happen in this movie. But the Skeletor makeup moves way too much to look like a skull, but not nearly as much as Frank Langella wishes it did to emote anything close to the performance he's trying to give underneath this damn thing.
But we got to appreciate what they did with the prosthetics on the face and everything. It looks good.
I mean, for the time,
yes. Everything. Yeah. Remember, this is all within that vacuum of this is 1987.
But instead of, I felt there was two ways to go about this, and they went the makeup on top of his face way, as opposed to putting him in like a helmet or a mask, right?
Yeah, that wouldn't have looked good.
I mean, no. If they remade Masters of the Universe today, he'd have like a sweet motorcycle-looking helmet, right? And it'd be all dark and everything would look green.
I'd like to think it'd be part practical and part CGI.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's the equivalent of a catcher's mask in baseball. Like it's just thicker lines.
Yeah,
there,
okay,
right?
I'll go with that.
You can see parts of him moving underneath to at least give the illusion of movement there and his mouth moving, but they hide his top lip. So you never really see him make sounds, which it makes sense because if he's a skeleton, he wouldn't be able to move his lips to make, like a W sound. But then again, too, how would this movie be if they just
Well, that's a really good point, and I just want to, right now, just the first time I'm going to say, and I'm going to say it multiple times here, Frank Langella steals every scene he's in this movie.
Yeah, which isn't as much as you would want it to be once you realize what's going on.
I wanted him in more scenes. He just wasn't enough of them.
Can I just do one more bit of one more small sliver of that gag one more time?
Please go.
Imagine him saying, "I am the master of the era." I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, I don't understand. His whole monologue with no lips.
It'd be amazing.
I should overdub this movie. But yeah, no.
You should.
Dude, Langella, first of all, if you don't know who Frank Langella is, you can go through like a bunch of stuff, especially after this movie. My favorite of his roles, just to kind of drop in there, he did this movie in the mid-2000s called Frost versus Nixon.
Yes, he was in that.
He was. I mean, he was Nixon, and apparently he played Nixon on stage and won a lot of awards for it. He was excellent as Richard Nixon. Full-on actor kind of performer. So he's in this movie, and opposite, and I do like this dynamic. Opposite of an actor's actor. Like a full-on thespian playing the villain of this movie is Dolph Lundgren, however you want to pronounce it. Ivan Drago. I'm just going to say Ivan Drago from here
Ivan Drago is in this movie.
Ivan Drago is your babyface. He's your hero in this movie with like all 9 sentences that he says. And he's the polar opposite in every single way. So good casting in that regard. On a poster, that's an impressive concept. So we open up with the Battle of Eternia, which is effectively over. Skeletor has invaded Castle Grayskull.
Yes, has captured the sorceress, who I'm pretty sure protects the castle. Yeah, she protects the power of the universe.
I think it's pretty clear that she doesn't benefit from the power of the universe, but she is like its protector.
Yes,
and so she has been captured at the start. So here's an interesting thing, and this is one of my big problems with the plot point of this film. We start this movie, and we're already into some shit, and no one really puts this together for us.
No.
It's like, Eternia, the power of the universe, power of the masters of the universe, and then you cut into this big, giant, very 80s set piece of the inside of Castle Grayskull, and the sorceress is already captured. and
he's draining her power because I think
Yes.
the deal is like as he's draining her power, she becomes older and more haggard looking.
yes, he's draining the life from her to add to his magical
To like
ability.
be able to then use because I think he needs. So if I recall correctly, and this is like going back, as I did not do research on this, but from what I remember, it's something like there's like Skeletor needs He-Man's sword.
Yeah,
Something
the
like
Sword
that.
of Grayskull.
He needs that in order to like activate the Great Eye.
That's one of the only things that makes it from the TV series into this movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to say in the toy line, it was something like Skeletor had his own sword, He-Man had his own sword.
Yes.
And they were like two halves of the same blade or something or other.
Yes.
And like together, then you'd have like the true power of the universe or something like that. Something like that.
Yes, so Skeletor had his own power that was derived from the sword in the toys line.
Yeah.
This is one of the few things I remember. And the power of Grayskull came from the sword. That was the whole concept. He-Man was He-Man because the sword, it's not that he was in possession of the sword, but because the sword belonged to him. He was the chosen wielder of the Sword of Grayskull. So really, Castle Grayskull was just the castle that the wielder of the Sword of Grayskull kind of chilled out or stood in front of on a now available KB Toys app.
So moving all along, we have...
He's draining the Sorceress of Power slowly.
So then we transition to He-Man.
And she's doing the same thing we see in every movie. Most notably, by the way, can I just put something in here? I immediately, in my brain, saw the relationship between Skeletor and the Sorceress. And I immediately thought of the Chronicles of Riddick. The main... Have you remember the movie The Chronicles of Riddick?
I remember it.
Yeah, and there's a whole scene in that film where the bad guy of the necromancers or the whatever the necroids, whatever they call the villains in that movie. And
was it Carl Urban?
No, Carl Urban was like the second in command. He was striving for this. He's the equivalent of Evelyn in that movie. Anyway, the main bad guy, Lord something, has Judi Dench prisoner, and she's an elemental.
Right.
And literally, it's the exact same fucking relationship that Skeletor and the Sorceress have. And I'm like, oh, Vin Diesel, you coy bastard. You basically took one of the only recognizable plot points from Masters of the Universe. You just slapped it on a Chronicles of Riddick movie.
And it worked.
But I'm sorry, I have it in my notes. Chronicles of Riddick. This is Chronicles of Riddick, and I have it 8 times over and over again. This is Chronicles of Riddick. I really should watch Chronicles of Riddick and say this is Masters of the Universe.
You should.
Yeah.
So we kind of transition to He-Man and his forces. They end up freeing Gwildor, who is they say there's so many little lines of dialogue in this movie that they say that, like you said, there's no exposition for it. They just say it. They're like mentioning other races and other species.
Oh yeah.
And they said what Gwildor was a couple of times, but I kept missing it.
I'm a blah 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 blah.
So whatever he was,
I've got water fins in my ear.
Yeah, he has gills in his ears or something.
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
Some weird gag that you see later, which was not funny.
So He-Man, Man-at-Arms,
and he's a key maker. He's like a key master or a music.
So he's an inventor.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
He's a locksmith or something like that.
And he's an inventor, and that will come into play in about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah. And what's the name of Man-at-Arms' daughter?
It's Tila.
Tila. Yes.
Yeah.
I have her in my notes as Tyra.
Yeah, Tila.
So, Tila.
And they, as it would find out, he was a guy who created the Cosmic Key.
Okay. Yes. Gwildor.
Gwildor. Yeah. So he created 2 Cosmic Keys. Skeletor had one. He had the other one. It's like the big MacGuffin for this movie. And so, using the Cosmic Key, using the tones on the key, you can
first synthesizer reference.
Yeah.
Here in this
So
movie.
like it has like tuning forks on top that open up and start spinning around. Lights would pop up, and you could basically go anywhere in the universe, space, and time.
You just had to know the melody to take you there.
Which is a cool concept that like,
the
the universe is all
I understand.
vibrations and sound, and it's like, that's cool. That's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's strange. And it's not of all the shit that's happening in this movie. This is not one of the weaker spots.
No.
This concept.
No.
The Cosmic Key. Before we get to the Cosmic Key, if you may hold on for a second, because I have notes about this.
Oh, good.
So He-Man meets up with Man-at-Arms and Tila. Tila? Tila. There it is. And they notice that the Skeletor soldiers burst into the scene. It is at this point that I yelled to my family, "Black Stormtroopers." over and over and over again, because I'm sorry to say
Because
this.
they are.
They literally are. Somebody took, if you remember the original Star Wars and the helmets that the gentleman who controlled the Death Star weapons were wearing, that kind of like are like weird teardrop on the sideward teardrop shape with a slit there. It's like somebody took those, flipped the bottom half around like it's an unsolved Rubik's Cube, and made the whole thing black where a stormtrooper be white. And the black stormtroopers will, by the way, keep appearing all over again.
Yeah.
I will call out every scene that the black stormtroopers appear in.
And it's actually kind of to that scene where you first see like Skeletor for the first time. His introduction was like the most Vader Palpatine-esque introduction, including the music.
Guys, so every single time in this movie, like whenever they lean into something and you go, oh, that's not, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right?
It's 100% a Star Wars moment.
There's like 17 of them on my notes of absolute Star Wars movies. So you have the Lord Vader entrance here with Skeletor's entrance. You have the music. You have the titles, which are definitely Star Wars. And you got Black Stormtroopers. So that's what we are. But the point which I'm going to start going up here is in the scene where He-Man jumps out and we first see He-Man, which you don't really get this is what gets me about the filmmaking here. You get no establishing shot of He-Man. Because in any other film, you'd see He-Man for a second, and then he would fuck something up. Or he'd fuck something up, and then you see He-Man for a second. They just jump into half-covered shots of He-Man messing up Black Stormtroopers, and then it's like a side shot of him having conversations. Like, you never see an establishing shot, really, of Dolph Lundgren playing He-Man.
Right.
But it is in this scene, the very first, within 25 seconds, I have it noted, of seeing He-Man, do we see our first nipple shot of Dolph Lundgren, where the entire screen frame is filled up with his pec, with the nipple dead fucking center in the middle of this. And this will happen several times in this movie.
I'm glad you noticed.
It is literally his pecs in this movie. So we get our first nipple shot. We get our first little person trapped in a net in this movie.
Trapped in a net, yes.
Black stormtroopers falling over from being hit with the broadside of a sword. And then we got Man-at-Arms, who has a full... I don't know what's going on with Man-at-Arms' his hair in this movie.
Well, it's a different planet.
Here's the thing. Spoilers slightly. I did not really couldn't put my finger on what was wrong with his hair until I saw the last time you see him in the movie, and his hair is like neater. And so I'm going to go ahead with my joke here, which is Man-at-Arms, or as I will now refer to him as, Toupee-at-Arms, for the entirety of this film.
I've never noticed any of that.
It is like a ruffled toupee and neat toupee. But I'm like, what's going on? My eyes are like, it's too busy. It's moving around to catch that. Only in the later food eating scene do I start to put it together. You can see where they slap this fucker on this guy. And then it's really noticeable at the end of the movie. But, okay, so we digress. So they cosmic key.
Yeah. They get to the throne room. They try to stage a coup. They don't win. Going
back 1 second, you missed the part where Gwildor, the inventor, this little person who invented these cosmic key, he invented one for Skeletor because Evil Lyn, Skeletor's second in command, who we will talk to about here in a second, tricked him by convincing him to make this concept, which is very weird. It's like some lady walks up to you, like, hey, could you create an interdimensional portal device that's not for nefarious purpose at all?
It's not for domination of the universe at all.
So he makes her this. This is what they use to break through the army of Eternia's defenses and crash into the throne room. But unbeknownst to anybody else, he develops a prototype first, which he being Grimdor, pronouns pal. Gwildor, whatever. I'm going to keep calling
You're going to keep fucking this up.
Gryffindor. They go to his little hut where they have, or a cave with in my opinion, is the best joke in this movie.
Oh, this ought to be good.
Okay, this is the best intentional joke in this entire film. So, and it's done just to be gratuitous to a certain point, and then they actually come up with the punchline. So, Gwildor has He-Man, Man-at-Arms, and Teela. And they're going up in there, and they go to his front door of his cave, and it's this steel door. And he goes, I remember when we didn't have to lock our doors in this
that.
neighborhood. We'll get there again. And so he takes this key out and he puts the key in, and it unnecessarily stays on this key in the lock for a while, in which the lights blink on the top of this key. Just gratuitous. You're like, what the hell is this? And he goes, and then it opens. And he's like, this way. And everyone files into his little hut. Then he shuts the door, and you see the sequence for like 15 seconds of all these locking mechanisms.
Yeah.
And bolts go across, and all of these things happen. And then he, just at the end, takes a little tiny little chain lock and locks the door. And I'm like, that's funny. That's like legit. Someone's like, I got an idea.
I will throw this in here.
I got an idea. We did all this other shit. Wait a minute. Chain lock at the end. I was like, do it. Fuck it. I don't care. We already spent $22 million on this. Let's keep going. But yeah, so they get there. There's a prototype for this key. And then they decide, well, why don't we just do what Skeletor did with his prototype, and let's hop directly into the throne room, and let's take this fuck by surprise.
Yeah. So they go in. There's so many jokes in this movie that aren't the actual jokes, but I feel like people who are our age taking their kids to see this movie in 87 had to have been like, what the fuck? There's like a point, they go up to the sorceress, and He-Man's like, there she is. They run up to free her. She goes, no, He-Man, you can't penetrate this force field. It's a goddamn strobe light.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said too.
I wrote like, it's a goddamn strobe light.
I have it in my notes. Somebody left their turn signal on.
I'm like, well, you can't. I mean, it's a strobe light, so I guess that's a no. So here's the other thing about the cosmic key that we learn. Every time one is used, you get like the other one can kind of catch the coordinates. Mm-hmm. They know when one's being used, and the other one's, to a
general point.
Yeah. So Skeletor finds out obviously that they're trying to free the sorceress. They crash the party and they got to get out of Dodge.
Which is just to kind of hop in here. One of the many fucking plot points and holes in this movie that I have a problem with is that literally 5 minutes before this, Skeletor arrives and he's standing triumphant in the throne room. Like, I've beaten you. I'm getting stronger. You get weaker.
Yes.
Bring me He-Man. He
wants him to kneel. He has to kneel.
There's a whole subplot about Dolph Lundgren being on his knees in front of Skeletor.
He really has
here.
to kneel.
Listen.
For whatever
reason. There's a few
reason.
moments in this movie, and I mean this as positively as I can speak this. There's some gay shit in this movie, okay? But one of the indirect ones is he's really got a big thing for He-Man kneeling down in front of him. And you know what? Hey, man, Skeletor, you get your freak on.
He-Man wants two things.
He wants him to do it willingly, which means he requires consent.
Yeah. Well, he wants two things: He-Man to kneel and the power of the universe.
That's all.
But you know what?
That's all.
I mean, really, he does get half of that.
He does. He just wants He-Man to get on his knees, give in to him, and look him dead in the eyes and say that I give myself to you. Which literally is what he asks for, I think, almost verbatim. Almost later in the movie. But anyway, but my big plot point is that Skeletor's like, I am going to do this by the time of the next moonrise, the power. And then he's in that room. Then we cut the He-Man nipple shots. Another only 15% of exposition left in this movie is him explaining the cosmic key, and I did it, and all this whole thing. And this lady requested this from me. Which we only have like, 10 more seconds of exposition left in this entire damn thing. When they jump there, Skeletor's gone.
He had to take a piss.
He's like, you know what? Anyone want a sandwich? I can go for a
There's
sandwich.
a Jimmy John's down the road.
Yeah. You know what? I get some chips. I'm gonna say, sorceress, do you have any chips? All right. I have. Because he's a skeleton. He shouldn't have any fucking lips.
Well,
But he dips the fuck. Not only does he dip out, but he's like, you know what? She's not going anywhere.
They just leave her there alone.
Let's all go have
with the strobe light.
Let's all go have some. I don't know. Let's go right in the fridge. You know what would really piss her off? Let's all go through her shit. Come on,
and leave the fridge door open.
Yeah, let's go mess her shit up. Like, let's go get out of here. So the entire Skeletor's defense force just bails out of this room when He-Man decides to jump through a portal.
Yes, it was and to that end, he knew Skeletor well.
Yes.
He knew he would leave her defenseless except for the strobe light.
But they do kind of give you that line where he's like, good things come to those who wait.
Yes.
And it's like, but really though, you pulled everybody out of that room. Of course, then again, too, a recurring theme in this movie is that He-Man and his friends are fucking stupid.
No one in this movie is really particularly smart.
There's one person in this entire movie that's smart, and I'll tell you who it is when we get there. All right?
Okay.
All right, I'll tell you who it is when we get there. But yeah, no, He-Man especially is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
He's like, oh shit, they're gone. All right,
Let's just fucking bail her out.
Judi Dench, I'm going to free you. And she's like, you can't.
There's a strobe light.
There's a strobe light. Someone left a turn signal on. I can't get out.
You can't
But you
penetrate.
must survive this still time.
So they get out of Dodge, and Gwildor, poor Gwildor, is like put under the gun to like type in some sort of code, some sort of sequence, and he's doing so, and he's drunkily doing. I'm convinced Gwildor is drunk the entire movie.
I think he's
Or
like
he's high.
I think he's got glue. He's like sniffing glue.
Because he's all.
So-
you see how he's like on the key, like, you see his fingers. They're all over the place.
Here's the
he
thing.
can't know what he's actually doing.
I mean, so basically, to kind of obtain it, here is this thing that looks like a gauntlet. By the way, that was one of the things I apparently, in my mind, have remembered the cosmic key many years over my life, but without being able to remember where do I know that thing from or what the hell is it. And then as soon as I saw it yesterday, I was like, oh shit, that's what that is. And I swear to you, at least 20 times in my life, I've thought of this, and I had no idea what it was for. And but he invents a machine that requires musical notes to travel through time and space. And he just
Clever.
starts punching this thing.
Yeah, he's like fucking fist
No,
palming
man,
it.
like, what the fuck? Like, you made this thing. Come on, you made this thing.
Did you?
Literally made this thing.
Did he though? Was he squatting in that hut? Did he just make shit up?
I did this. He's like, I made this. There's no way I just randomly found this. Like, at all. Not at all. Why would you ask such a question? Anyway.
Yeah, it's basically how it goes. I swear. I'm sitting there while I'm like, I can't. I know the movie's gonna movie, and I get it, but realistically, if I'm He-Man, I'm looking at him going, the fuck are you doing over there?
Like, dude, you just said literally 2 minutes ago that you made this thing, and you're like, but I've forgotten how it works. There's infinite combinations. But didn't you literally figure one out to be able to show Meg Foster how to work it? But yes, of course. And you lost it now? Why, yes, of course.
Yes, of course.
Are you high? Why, yes, of course. So
Yes.
There's two other things to hop in here that I have
Yes.
notes of. Number one, so before that, to explain is, this thing, they have two versions of this thing. You play the musical notes, you hop through time. Skeletor rolls up in on these guys.
Yeah.
When they're talking to the sorceress and trying to find a way to free. She's like, you guys got to bail. Sorceress comes in. He's like, good things come to those who wait. Armed with a bunch of black stormtroopers. The entire production cast of black stormtroopers are in this scene.
Who are all robots, by the way.
Are they?
Yeah. So, fun fact about this movie, that I don't remember exactly the name of the company. I guess it would just technically be Mattel. It would be Mattel. Didn't want He-Man killing people. That was the trick.
So he kills robots.
So all those henchmen are robots.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing gained or lost with that information.
Right. Precisely.
But anyway, Skeletor rolls up in. So now they have to. A firefight starts, and Skeletor and Gryffindor, Clark Griswold, decides that they're yelling at him to enter a code to get us out of here. And so he starts punching shit randomly. And at this point, we put a pin in this. So Skeletor's the bad guy in this movie. You probably got this.
I mean, that's what they want us to think.
Okay.
He's
the antagonist.
Yes.
To He-Man's protagonist.
Yes.
But his second in command is Evelyn, played by Meg Foster. Now we're gonna put a pin in Meg Foster and go back to that.
Will
about
we?
5 seconds. Oh, several pins, specifically the pricks. But we'll get back to it.
Wow. All right.
Yes, I just
I had to set that up.
kick that door down.
Okay.
But Evelyn comes in, and remember, she's the one who tricked the little guy little person into, I mean, worse by clarifying.
Okay. Go on.
I'm trying to. He tricked Gryffindor that into making the device in the first place. And she, at that moment, realizes that they have a second one. No one knows that they have a second one. That's how they got in until that moment. In which case, that he starts punching shit in randomly.
So Gwildor goes, got him.
Yeah. But I digress. Yeah. I'm still reeling from that previous comment. Like, that made it better.
It did.
No, it did not. But anyway, so, but before we get there, last thing before we jump on the plot point is when He-Man jumps through the portal and they're like, old ass sorceress, or still young ass sorceress, we need to save you. And she's like, no, strobe light, turn signal. You can't. You still have time though. And that's when they hit us with the very first of what will be many completely unnecessary bullshit units of measurement that they put. There's like, the moon will rise. You still have the first 0.61 Minox until the moon rises.
Minox.
We're 6 parsec ions away.
There was some solid bullshit going on.
They're like, yeah, so if you go 12 millimiles over to a metrotope, then if you raise your quit meter 71 flippopops.
Can we talk about what's a quick meter?
I don't even know. Quipometer with a melatope. Then perhaps you'll arrive at a parsec. I don't even know. It's like someone's like, of all the Star Wars shit that they picked out of Star Wars to put in this movie, grabbing parsec, which is already the wrong unit of measurement for the use it was, that they totally retconned in Solo.
Yes,
which to me is like the thing I absolutely remember the most about that movie.
Ain't much else to remember.
Amelia Clark.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving forward.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a whole lot of notes about the every time they fucking made a new unit of measurement up for this fucking movie, I lost my shit.
So they go through the portal, right?
Yeah.
And I want to say like, the most underrated character in this whole movie to me is Tila. She is fucking no-selling everything.
Okay.
She's badass for badass sake, and I like that. She fucking like cartwheels into the portal.
She's the only character. First of all, she absolutely does cartwheel into the portal. Completely fucking unnecessarily.
Everybody just like, jumps in. She like flips
she's like,
in.
Fuck it! Yeah. And she just hops in there.
No idea where the fuck she's gonna land.
No,
she just fucking cartwheels in.
No one breaks the fourth wall in this movie. The movie might be better if they did.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
But she gets right up in there. She gets like right up to the.
She does. There's one scene where she 100% looks at the fucking camera and makes a fucking comment. Yeah. And I remember I was too young to appreciate it then. But when I saw it the other day, I just went, "What the fuck?"
Did she just do that? She didn't
me?
Break the fourth wall.
She might as well just winked at me.
But she got right up close to it. And there's a couple of times where she goes, it's almost like this whole movie is just being so ridiculous, and it's just snowballing and ridiculous. And at some point, she goes, "Really?" And then the movie keeps going.
Yeah, like it didn't actually happen.
Then she jumps in the snowball. Yeah. Like,
but and before we move on to Earth, because, like usual, when Mr. Brown and I talk about
no
a
way
subject,
we've been doing it this long already.
All right, and we go, well, usually I'm the one who goes, well, I don't know if we're going to be able to really, talk about this for any real significant length of time. We end up going 2.5 goddamn hours.
Yeah, 3 days later.
So today, Noah started to say to me about this subject, because I said, I got to be home at a certain time, got dinner plans and blah, blah. He goes, 57 minutes. We are no more than like 12 minutes into this fucking film.
We got to step this up a little bit. But thankfully...
12 minutes maybe.
We get to Earth now. Spoiler.
So before they get to Earth...
Wait a second. And I was just going to say, this is where the movie gets extra shitty, is when they arrive to Earth. And first of all, if you haven't seen this movie, none of this will make any sense before then. We saw this movie, and none of anything that came up to now made any sense.
Before they jump in the portal, and like the thing that stood out to me the most, and I'm sure when I was a kid I thought was really cool, but now I look in and go, you fucking serious? The cosmic key still like left in the throne room. They drop it or something.
Yeah.
And somebody who I'm assuming is only He-Man takes a fucking grappling hook, shoots it back.
Oh, it's a claw from a claw game.
Which I'm assuming here's the thing. I'm assuming he shoots this fucking thing in mid-jump.
Yes.
Like he's still antimatter or he's somewhere in the ether.
Space and time.
He turns back to face the throne room, blind shots this fucking claw into the throne room. It actually hits the cosmic key perfectly.
And the history of bullshit shots in a movie, of random coincidences.
Are you serious?
We're not even pointing out the fact that this is a guy in a loincloth a bondage strap on his chest and a part of a cape.
And part of a cape, yep.
That he's not had on his belt the entire movie. And so a man wearing no clothes pulls a fucking grappling hook out of nowhere, and makes the shot of a lifetime. Grabbing the cosmic key and pulling him into a planet behind him where our heroes, He-Man, Man-at-Arms, and Teela land, and they're like, where are we? And then the puppet little person squirts water out of his ears.
Yeah.
His gills. Comic clarity ensues, and then the big reveal, they're like, oh my god, there's a life form coming. We need to find the claw. We need to separate the key. We need to separate in quadrants. What is this big thing coming? Guys, don't shoot. It could be intelligent life, and it's a fucking cow.
Yep.
Which I absolutely remembered from the original.
And I wrote, now I'm looking at my notes.
Yeah.
And I'm standing behind this shit. Disagree or agree, I don't care.
Okay.
Gwildor really wasn't nearly as annoying as I remember him being.
Oh, no. He was actually probably
I enjoyed
the most likable character in the entire movie.
He was like, I remember as a kid not liking the character at all. I don't know why I didn't. I just didn't. But
Snurf. That's what I think my brain was.
Snurf. Yeah.
Lino.
But rewatching the movie,
yeah.
I actually really appreciated Gwildor because he was levity,
for sure,
weird situations, and he was very fish out of water, because he's the only truly non-humanoid character that you're really interacting with, or that the cast is interacting with.
Yeah, that has any kind of bearing on the film whatsoever. He's legitimately the funniest thing in the movie, and they actually, that's one of the few things that they designed in a way and achieved in this film, is that Gwildor is absolutely the funniest part of this entire movie. The only intentionally funny part of this movie has every time that it works, Gwildor's in the scene.
Yeah.
Just flat out.
But yeah, so they split up, which I always found kind of suspect that they all split up separately. Gwildor's not a fighter. He's not a warrior. He's not like a guy who should be by himself. Evidenced by he found food and that they found him eating.
Wait.
What?
There's 4 people that start this journey arriving on this unknown planet Earth. Uh-huh. All 4 of them go in their separate ways. In the very next scene, the 3 of them all ended up going the same direction.
Well, they're not very bright.
Hey,
there's a reason why Skeletor won.
Yeah. That's the best they got.
Mm-hmm.
Toupee at arms, his fourth wall breaking daughter, and then I don't know who plays Gwildor, but I'm pretty sure he was in Willow.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty sure he was.
We should totally do Willow sometime. That movie.
I was never a huge Willow fan. My sister was. I was not.
My wife refuses to watch Willow. Apparently, she's absolutely terrified of that movie.
What part of it?
I don't know, because she won't talk about it. It's
like that bad.
It's like, I can't talk. No, I just don't want to. No, we're gonna move on. We're not watching it.
Let's move on.
I don't even care if it's got Val Kilmer in it. No, I'm done. And I'm like, oh, we're watching this.
We should cover Legend.
Yes, we should. You know, we should do like a series for a little while of 80s fantasy movies. Do never-ending story.
Listen, I don't want to cry again.
No, I haven't seen it since a long time like this movie.
Yeah,
and and our generation puts that movie on a pedestal.
Dark Crystal.
We'll do Dark Crystal. We'll do Legend, Willow, and the Never-Ending Story sometime. You heard it here first, as if you'd hear it anywhere else.
Where the fuck else would you hear it?
This is CNN breaking news. What the fuck?
Yeah. So. We eventually meet our main Earthling protagonists.
So yes, so they all decide to go in separate directions to look for the cosmic key. They all go in separate directions, but everyone but He-Man all ends up at the same fast food restaurant.
Yeah, Robbie's Ribs and Chicken.
Yes, Robbie's Ribs, and this is a huge another note. I don't know if I want to read my thing verbatim because there's even more profanity than it needs to be.
Okay, good.
But we're here at Robbie's Ribs, and we'll talk about who we meet there in a second. But a reoccurring theme that happens 3 or 4 times in this film, it's not really that big of a theme, is that clearly one of our main characters works at Robbie's Ribs and Chicken.
Yeah.
And 3 of the central characters find Robbie's Ribs and Chicken.
Yes.
So you would understand that Robbie's Ribs and Chicken, the actual food, is all throughout this movie.
Okay.
All of it, except one piece of chicken, looks completely fucking inedible. I mean, at one point, Gwildor pulls a rib out of a bucket, which I never knew you could get a bucket of ribs. I've been missing out on
I would
something
really like to get a
life.
bucket of ribs myself.
I would go there and I'm like, I don't care. Are these Robbie's ribs? Like literally, is he in the back? Because they would be theoretically tasty. But Gwildor pulls out this thing that's like supposed to be this rib, and I have seen dog rawhide bones that look more edible than the fucking food he pulls out of this bucket. The only piece of chicken or food that looks anywhere near edible that shows up out of these buckets of food this entire movie is the one that Toupee at Arms pulls out because they're all sitting around gnawing on these and he's eating a fried chicken drumstick.
Yes, he is.
And it's straight. It's the only one because there's other chicken drumsticks that will show up. I made notes in the movie.
This is the real job.
And all of them look gray and sweaty, like someone who didn't know how to cook just heated them up.
Well, we never said Robbie's was getting good.
No, but Toupee, he got the one piece of good chicken that
that's why he was tearing it up.
He destroyed that shit. But that's a big problem I have is that one of the central plot points is this food from this restaurant that looks fucking awful. Because just a kind of another sidebar here. I think I, like most humans in the world, fucking adore pizza.
Of course.
But I have recently tried to, do a little self-discovery, a little self-learning time.
Okay.
And I think the reason why I always am in the mood for pizza, like literally every day of my life, I think goes back to the Ninja Turtles cartoons.
Oh, that goes without saying.
Yes. And the big stretchy cheese pizza.
Yeah.
All right. Like that's a popular franchise rendition of food that makes me want the food more.
Yeah.
Robbie's chicken and ribs makes me never want to eat human food again.
Ever again.
I mean, you know what? I'll just chew on this fucking balsa wood. I don't know. Looks more appetizing than that horse shit, but I digress. Doc.
Yeah.
Who works at this Robbie's chicken and ribs?
Julie.
Julie,
who we meet as like I said, one of the key central human or earthling protagonists. Yes. We find out it's her last day at Robbie's Chicken and Ribs, or Ribs and Chicken, depending on what part of the Mississippi you live on. And we find out that her parents had died in a tragic plane accident. We got to make the characters relatable to little kids, of course.
Okay, so you're yes. Her parents died in a tragic accident.
Very tragic.
Very recently into this movie. But considering that she just lost both of her parents to a tragic accident.
Tragic.
Super tragic. That she's doing well enough to be at work. So this is the entire rest of the exposition of the movie happens in this next two scenes. And I'll step you through it here and correct me if I'm off the thing.
Please.
Julie, Courtney Cox, by the way, a very young Courtney Cox.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, every time I see that actress, I just go hold on.
I guess how could you not? Jesus.
There it is. Works at this fast food restaurant. She's about to graduate high school.
Mm-hmm.
She is deciding to move from this. Now, I did a little deductive reasoning myself. She says she's going to move 3,000 miles away from anything that reminds her of this town, her parents, and her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Kevin, right?
Kevin, yeah.
Kevin. Move away from her boyfriend.
Wait. Is Kevin like the most like prototypical like boyfriend 80s name?
I think everybody, not just every woman, but every person in the world has dated someone named Kevin.
Okay.
And I don't even think we really see this. You're going to start unpacking. Oh my God, I did date Kevin for like 7 months. Oh my God.
There was that Kevin Smith.
Oh my God, no way, no shit. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, we meet. She's on her last shift at Robbie's Ribs and Chicken, the worst restaurant in human history.
Yeah.
She's leaving. She's going to travel 3,000 miles away from all this, which means that to New Jersey.
Yeah.
Which means if she's going to New Jersey, then she's only on the West Coast.
Right.
3,000 miles away. So this is nondescript town in the West Coast.
Yeah. This is like 100% California.
I say Northern California.
I saw palm trees.
I mean, literally, it's very evident that they shot most of the sequences that take place in the alleyways in this thing in Los Angeles.
And I don't know much about California. I've only been there once, and spent that much time there. But I'm assuming that there's an area in California called Catalina.
Yes.
That's where her parents died, going to Catalina.
It's an island off the coast of Los Angeles.
So that's where...
Yeah.
Okay.
Catalina Island. Catalina wine mixer.
Yeah. So she's leaving. She needs to get away from everything. She's going to miss graduation. I feel like this is
Oh,
poor
she's
planning.
leaving before she's just bailing on her life.
This seems like a really poor planned situation. She needs like an adult.
Not to get yes, for sure. And she's for someone who has recently lost their parents in a plane crash. A lot of affairs are really strangely in order. So not to get too far ahead, which
That's
I think,
a really good point.
I think we could probably time wise use for jumping far ahead. But we see her house later in the movie when they go looking for her, and the house has a sold sign. So she
handled her shit.
This orphan that lost her parents has found a way to graduate high school, manage a move across country, and has closed on selling her parents' house.
Yes.
So Courtney Cox would appear to have her shit together, but the rest of the events of this movie would tell you that perhaps that's
otherwise.
That's otherwise. But so we get all the rest.
So we meet Kevin.
This is the entirety of the rest of the exposition. Yeah. She leaves there. She's like, "Bye. I'll never see you again."
She meets Kevin in his van.
It's a guy with a van.
Yeah. So
yeah,
and he's like obviously busted up that she's leaving. He's trying to convince her, "Oh, you got to stay." You know, she goes, "No,
book your
Kevin,
flight.
You're an asshole. I'm leaving." And
we agree not to do this. We're not going to do this.
Yeah, but she honestly, listen, I don't know what it's like to be in Kevin's position, but it's got to be awful. And can I also mention that Kevin, at least in that first 3 minutes of meeting him, is doing his best John Krasinski impersonation I've ever fucking seen in my life.
Yeah. Oh,
100%. But anyhow,
no, just to kind of add in
was
here.
Krasinski.
Whatever, the guy from The Office.
Yeah.
Who's really, in my opinion, we'll talk about this again. He's the villain of The Office, by the way.
Oh, he's an instigator.
Oh yeah, he's full on the real villain of The Office. But we'll backpedal for a second. Kevin, her boyfriend. Let me just explain the blueprint of this situation. So in the very previous scene, Courtney Cox explains that she's abandoning her life here.
Yeah.
Going to move across the country to New Jersey of all places.
Yeah.
Start her life over, break up with her boyfriend, is now selling her parents' house, and she's leaving tonight. And she gets in her boyfriend's van. A sweet van.
Sure.
But a van. And she's like, what time's your bus to go to the airport? She says, 8:30. And he's like, you can't push your plane ride back. He's like, come on, stay, baby. And she's like, no, we talked about this. I'm not doing this. And then he says, one of the most ridiculous things in his time, he's like, but you're still going to come to my band sound check, right?
And she's like, sure.
She's like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. Of course.
I'll come to that.
How could I miss that? And now knowing what we know, I'm just going to probably blow past part of that scene when it comes up. The band sound check is those two alone in a gymnasium while he plays a synthesizer.
He 100% wanted to get laid.
He's like, oh yeah, come to my...
He wanted to get his penis touched before he left.
Before she left forever, yeah. But no,
but
did not happen.
Before they do that, they go to the graveyard.
I was getting there. He's like, will you come to my band sound check? And she's like, of course I will. And then they start driving away. She's like, I want to go to my parents' grave.
One more time.
If I want to say goodbye to my parents. This movie is away, dude. So they're
at the they're having this moment. She's busted up. I'm actually slowly becoming convinced no more we talk about that she murdered her parents.
Yeah, she's like, I should have cut their break. I mean, they shouldn't have flown the plane.
So here's the best part. I'm watching this, right? I don't know if you caught what I caught. But they're talking, and she's all, going it wasn't just, that we're supposed to spend the day at the beach, but then I told him I had to study because I wanted to spend time with you. This is all my fault. But what she's really saying is, Kevin, this is your fucking fault.
Yeah, she's like, so, remember that day that you're like, let's have sex? Yeah. And I was like, no, I can't. I'm going to the beach with my parents. And you're like, seriously, tell them you're studying. I'm like, fine.
Yeah.
That day... that you took my innocence, it killed my innocence, Kevin.
It's all his fault.
And he's all like...
and he's just standing like...
And he's hands in his pockets, he's like, this whole thing sucks. And they're like, what's that over there?
They went from pure, sadness and mourning to delight.
The very last drop of exposition, they turn around and they're in a... And you know what? Here's the thing. The rest of the movie, they describe the circumstances in which they find the cosmic key. Spoiler, they find the cosmic key, suspiciously near her parents' grave.
Yeah.
But, so they several times did they describe how they found the cosmic key, unnecessarily in the movie. Oh, we found it in this big crater. It was just lying in this giant crater. Oh, yeah, it was this giant crater and I just found it. They say it 3 times in the movie. But really... it's like this fucking thing in a hole that's maybe a foot wider than the actual device.
Yeah.
Sitting in the dirt. You never see a giant crater.
No.
I feel like, so they're like coming on up to the actor that played Kevin. So you're gonna do your scene here today, yeah. So we're feeling kind of insecure about the size of the hole that we put the prop in earlier in the film. Remember that park scene? Yeah. So could you just do me a favor? And could you call it a giant crater every time you ever mention it?
Every time.
But it wasn't. I know though. Yeah. So Mattel's like really convinced that this needs to be a giant crater. So if you could just say that every time you mention it, that'd be great. Okay. And then they go on. But I was like, it's like they refer to giant crater in the film, and there is no giant crater at all in this film.
All right. Now, before we keep going, I looking at the time, we are going way long on this episode.
Yeah.
I'm feeling.
How the fuck is it taking it this long to talk about this goddamn movie?
Listen, this is why I wanted.
I don't even like this movie.
Well, now you're going to like it even less because we're going to talk about it. We're going to stop now, and I think maybe next week we'll pick up and finish because at this stage, like, it's getting late.
As this movie will happen, somebody's got to finish. Skeletor wants to finish.
Oh, he really wants to finish.
Prince Adam needs to finish.
Well,
I don't know if he's ever finished at this point.
I don't think he ever does.
That version Hugh about him.
I don't think he ever does.
But so we're gonna put a pin in it.
Yeah, we're gonna stop here.
And we're gonna go next week. You know, how funny is it that we keep having these subjects that we keep saying to ourselves, it can't possibly go very long. And then we keep having to split them up into two-parters because, goddamn.
Because we talk too much.
We talk too much. We do. But you know what? This is the perfect format. God, if could you imagine how shitty we'd be if we were painters that talk too much? Anything. Any other occupation. But two guys with a microphone talking about a movie from 1987.
We make it work.
This works.
Yeah, and I knew we would talk a lot about this movie. You were the one who like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
nah. There's a lot of meat on this bone.
Yeah, completely unlike Robbie's shitty chicken and ribs.
But yeah, so we'll pick back up next episode, and hopefully you guys will be along with us on this ride with Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, I guess in a sentence I never thought I'd say. Join us next week for Masters of the Universe Part 2.
Part 2. All right, folks, take it easy. Be safe out there.
Oh, God.